Good evening, everyone. How is everyone this evening?
Great.
Thank you for coming out. In the beginning, we were a bit worried. We were sitting over here, me, Flo, and Ming. We thought, uh-oh, it's just going to be the three of us tonight. Okay. Well, welcome. Tonight is going to be a little bit different than most other nights. This is our annual AMA, our Ask Me Anything.
It wasn't annual, we tried for 3 years.
We tried for 3 years. The funny thing is, during COVID, we tried doing this at Withrow Park, and then day of we canceled it because the Humidex was like 50. And then the second year, we were supposed to be at Withrow Park again, and it got canceled again because Humidex was like 48. So it wasn't meant to be, but now we're indoors.
Tonight's the night.
Tonight's the night.
That's it. Where's people? Tonight.
So it's our AMA. Ask anything. Ask us anything. So we really should call this an AUA.
Yeah. But mostly ask Matt.
I end up going on monologues a lot. So yes, ask me anything. And our summer social. So are we planning to end early so we can all hang out, or?
No, we've got a break in the middle.
We have a break in the middle.
The agenda.
Yeah, we'll call that our summer social. So, what do we got tonight? We've already started late. We're gonna Volition updates, and my personal favorite is Ming's Market Minute update. It allows me to kind of check out, take a little snooze. But Ming's going to do his market updates. Then we're going to get to our AMA. We're going to hang out with the network for a bit in the middle. And then we're going to get back to our AMA. And then maybe by 9, we'll wrap up. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Common question. Is this recorded? Yes, it's recorded right over there. So don't sit in front of there. Don't walk it. It will be posted on our website. Everything we record goes up on our website. So go up on our website, volitionprop.com, mastermind, something, and you'll find it there. Cool?
Here we go back.
You might need it.
It's now one of your slides or someone's.
Housekeeping. Okay. Support local. So we've got a fine establishment here who's willing to put up with you rowdy real estate investors. So order some food, order some drink, support local. Washrooms downstairs right below us. Cell phones, put them on do not disturb, put them on silent. Please. Recordings, they'll be made available. Make sure you're on our email list. You'll be sent hot properties, great deals, new listings, and reminders to these types of events here. And use the QR code to sign up. All right? Anything else? Well, anything else? Legal disclaimer. Oh, this is Ming's favorite slide. Here we go.
Yes. So I'll leave this here. You can all read through it line by line. Basically, it says if you don't like what's happening here, your exclusive remedy is to leave. So if you're upset with us, just leave. Feel free to go. Hopefully nobody is. Yeah, let's keep going. It's a legal GTO. Okay, so we started the precipice. One of the big things was we were hearing a lot of myths about Toronto, about it as a place to invest, about it's impossible to work, there's no cash flow, it's too risky, it's too expensive, and there's many other Toronto investors in here, and we know that it's simply not true.
So can everyone hear us? You guys good?
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. It's an investable city, and so we became a bit talking heads about this because it is possible, and as a result, we are kind of like the mythbusters of these myths. Our stance on this is won us a whole bunch of awards. We have invested a ton of money for clients, and we've been on a bunch of media outlets as a result. HGTV, for example. And what exactly is Volition? We get this all the time. People come here, they listen to us talk, and they're like, actually, I have no idea what it is you do. So we'll take a couple of minutes to explain. there's basically 4 areas of the company. First one is advisory. So what sets us apart from other real estate brokerages is we actually help solve problems. So if you come to us and you're like, hey, I want to invest, the average place is going to be like, oh, buy this condo. That's not what we do, right? It's really important for us to understand what you're trying to achieve, what your goals are, what your risk tolerance is, understand if you've got any, additional things that can help. Maybe you've got family and contracting or something like that. How can we leverage all these things to figure out what the best investment is for you? And that's what we do in advisory. We actually plan it out. The second thing is in realty, we execute on this. So let's say, you spend some time with Matt, we're like, okay, you want an owner-occupied triplex, we're looking for laneway suite potential, maybe garden suite. Now it comes over to my side in realty and we execute on that. We also help with design and renovations. So oftentimes to get to a triplex or a garden suite or something of this capacity, you're gonna need help on the construction side. We're there to help. We're not contractors ourselves, but we have a network of contractors. We'll help navigate that process because it's quite challenging, quite difficult. And the last thing is community. It's great to see a whole bunch of people we already know, as well as some new faces. One of the big reasons we started this meetup is I said to Matt, I want and I need a community to help me be a better investor. So the community is a big part of this. This is the team, and you see they're big and in green as he looks up now at the board. Ali Khan, so quick round of applause for Icon. He just got his license.
He's been with the Volition team for about
2 years.
2 years.
He got licensed 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
We've been, he started his license, or the training for his license a long time ago, but we've been keeping him too busy, keeping him from his studies.
There's been a lot. But he's fully licensed now and already very active. We were just out this morning looking at 2, maybe 3 listings that will be coming on. So awesome, congrats, Ali Khan. And a lot of companies have a mission statement. For us, this is our mission statement. It is more like a mission picture. The world of real estate investing is very complicated, and we try to guide you through that. We try to be the eraser in the maze. Just a reminder for our clients about the WhatsApp chat if we have missed you, which we're very bad. We keep having to add clients long after they've been our clients. But if we have missed you, please let us know. We'll add you on there.
What is it?
Oh, it's a private discussion group, safe space for us to complain about tenants. Talk about changes in the market, interest rates, borrowing from credit unions. These are some of the things that have come on recently. Rats, managing vermin, and you'll hear a lot from Jason here.
How many?
He's an active member on the community.
Actually, how many people here are on our inner circle? WhatsApp inner circle?
I'm not afraid.
Yeah, it's a few. Yeah, it's a few.
It's a couple. Yeah. So anyway, hey, Bob. Yeah. If you're not on there and you're a client, please let us know.
Oh, here's another question. How many of you have? Let's start the other way. So, how many of you have been out to one of these events before? Volition, one of these Volition meetups. Yeah? And half? And what about the other half? There's only 2 options.
They're your first time.
There's only 2 options. There's no third option.
That's
How
not
many-
PC, man.
How many of you have not been out? This is your first time. Don't be shy. Yeah? Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you for coming out. All right. So now we know who to pick on. All right.
Cool. So, I'm just gonna.
What happened to our? What happened to the property weather slide?
That's after this.
Someone did look
I had some Caribbean slides that were put together for him. Okay, quickly let's talk about what's happening in the market. And I'm going to do this, relatively high level because the data is about 2 weeks lagging, 3 weeks lagging, and it's actually shifted since this data. And this is the thing, like, you can go through the data in the headlines, but nothing beats boots on the ground, and the market's been extremely volatile. I haven't seen a market like this in like the 20 years I've been doing real estate. And it's gone from hot to cold to hot to cold, and it just keeps flipping back and forth. And we've seen that happen 4 times this year, right? Which is unprecedented in real estate in this city too. So I'll go through what some of the historical data is covering, but during the AMA, we'll talk a bit more about why are we seeing this volatility, where we see it going in the next. We'll pull out the crystal ball and do a bit of an exercise there, talk about where we see it going as well. Okay, so sales volume. The takeaway from this is sales are down. It's things are not moving, and if I was to draw a end of July into early August, I would probably cut that bar down another 30%. So since the rate increase in July, the market has just frozen. It's not because it went up 0.25%, right? Because practically speaking, another 0.25% onto everybody's mortgages, onto your potential mortgage and potential company, doesn't make much of a difference. It was the messaging that came along with it. It was the Bank of Canada saying, here's another 0.25%, and who knows, maybe there's more, right? And that basically scared everybody because it's very difficult to operate in uncertainty. Right? If any of you are business owners, if you have a set of rules to operate against, you can create a business around that set of rules. If that set of rules is constantly changing, it's very difficult to create a business. And not just for investors, but for regular home buyers, if you don't know what your mortgage is going to be over the next 3 or 4 years, it's very tough. So I'm calling a frozen market right now. Nobody wants to list. Nobody wants to list, and nobody wants to buy. There is maybe a slight thawing of the market in the last couple of days. We have active listings, we have active buyers, and we're maybe seeing it shift again. So we may see some thawing of the market before we get to September, which is potentially another rate increase, which we'll talk about a bit more later. But right now, it's a frozen market. Average selling price, I think one of the things that's interesting here is you still see it touch up from last year. We'll get into the future predictions later, but I don't think we'll see that going forward. I think we'll start to see more of a decline. And then this is another, so we pulled up the slide, we've done it a couple times, but I want to take a pause because it's about half the people are new here. This is sales to new listing ratio. This is basically absorption rate, right? So given what is out in the market, at what rate are those properties being purchased? The higher it is, the more the market is accepting of the prices and the inventory that's out there. When you see it above 100%, it means that properties past 30 days, people are even buying, right? So if you go back to like 2021, 2020, in December, above 100%, people wanted to buy so badly, they were buying basically crappy properties that have been sitting on the market for a long time. Now you see here, we're sitting closer to 40%. They say a balanced market is 55, right? So 55% absorption rate is a balanced market. So if you're on House Sigma and you're looking at that little thing that tells you it's a buyer's or seller's market, that's all it is, right? It's just looking at the absorption rate and based on what it is in that local area, telling you if it's a buyer's or seller's market. Overall though, it should be a buyer's market in general. It's not quite true though, because what inventory is out there is not very good. So, okay. What's happening with the market? Okay, let's do that. So, at the very tail end, you see what I'm talking about. Some of those housing prices are starting to tick down. This is downtown single-family detached. Same thing with condos. We see a trend out. A bit of recovery happened for spring, but it is starting to tail off again. And I would say, like right now, if I were to draw August, it should be down a little bit further. Condo prices are collapsing is too dramatic of a word, but they are coming down. This is echoed everywhere else. Same thing happening in Uptown, single family. Yeah, that's it. Any questions about the market? What's currently happening?
Oh, that's fast.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to take my nap.
Yes.
Only a 4-minute nap.
Interesting stuff, right, guys? Does the sarcasm come through? I'm not sure. But actually, like, we can get into this a little bit more in the AMA, but when I'm talking to people, talking to advisory clients, I like to take them a little bit of a history lesson and talking about impacts of interest rates. So, given the fact that I think about half of you are new here, I'm just gonna take a beat and just talk about interest rates a little bit before we get into.
There's a slide on that, right?
All right, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to start there. So, my name is Matt. I am one half of the Asian Property Brothers, trademark TM. Yeah. So, I've been told that I should spend a couple minutes introducing myself and my journey, given the fact that a lot of you are new here. So, I'll go through this quickly. So, rewind many millennia ago, I was a young buck, working corporate and very disillusioned, and I wanted something different for myself. And I accidentally bought an investment property. More specifically, I was going to buy a condo, just like everyone else my age. I was in my 20s, and when I was buying a condo in downtown Toronto, I thought, why not? I'll buy a condo just like everyone else. And I had a friend told me, well, hey, instead of buying a condo, why don't you buy a duplex? And I was like, what's a duplex? And he's like, oh, it's a house with 2 units. You can live in one, you can rent out the other. I'm like, why would I want a house? I grew up in a house. I remember shoveling snow, cutting grass, weeding. Like, why do I want a house? And he's like, well, you can rent out one, and you can live in the other. And I was like, oh, you could do that? I didn't know that. Right? And I thought, okay, let's take a look at this. So he showed me how much he bought a house for. He showed me how much you could rent the other unit for. And I was like, I knew nothing about real estate. I was working in business, and I was like, so I ran a quick financial model. It's not rocket science. And I was like, whoa, I can bring down my cost of living by buying one of these so-called duplexes. This is magical. So I went hunting for a duplex, and then I accidentally bought a fourplex. And that was the beginning of my real estate journey. And the financials were a little bit different back then, obviously, but I lived in one unit and I rented out the other 3, and I was living for free. I was living for free. In fact, I was getting paid to live. Pretty good feeling. Those rent checks, man, those are good days. The economics have changed a little bit, but the economic fundamentals in Toronto haven't changed. So what I mean by that is that there's certain economic fundamentals actually underpinning the market. And Toronto is actually a very strong market. I didn't know that back then. I just accidentally bought something. I was purely looking at cash flow, and I thought I hit the lottery. Right? So I did something very rash. I quit my job, and I thought, I need to figure this out. So I dove headfirst in and to go figure it out. I didn't have a mentor, a coach, an advisor. Otherwise, they would have told me, don't quit your job, otherwise you can't qualify for another mortgage. No one told me that. Like, that's how green I was. But I dove headfirst in, I figured it out, and many years later, fast forward, grew a portfolio, started helping other investors, and that really was the genesis of Volition. And that was the genesis of this meetup. So this meetup is about 8 years running now. We've grown into the largest real estate investment meetup group in Toronto and the second largest in Canada. And so that's a little bit about my journey. And someone I was talking to, I want to say Jeff, wanted to know a little bit about my journey. So that was a little bit about how I got started. Lots of twists and turns along the way, a lot of course corrections along the way. The point is, the reason we created this is because there is no reason for you to make those same mistakes that I made and that Ming made along the way. You can stand on the shoulders of giants. Not that I consider myself a giant, I'm only 5'10". But the point is, you don't have to make those same mistakes. We have made those mistakes already. Your starting point is a hell of a lot further ahead than ours was. many, many years ago, right? That's why we're here tonight. So I hope that you learned something valuable, and hopefully you learned something that you can take away and incorporate into your own real estate investment journey.
So 50% of you know me, so I'll tell you my life story 50% shorter. I started off, I just graduated, and I was either going to buy a used car or I was going to buy an investment property. I didn't know at the time much of the difference. I was 21, what do you know when you're that age? Sorry, all you people in your 20s. I was a very ignorant 20-something. And I fell into investing because I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it seemed like a good idea. I have a relatively high risk tolerance, so I did some math, literally on the back of a napkin at Mel's Diner in Waterloo. You guys know the place. I was talking with my parents about it, and at the time you could do a high ratio mortgage, 5% down. And I was like, oh, well, I could buy a house for the same price as this used car. Like, this used Honda Civic is $7,000.
Is it a spoiler, or?
I mean, spoiler is half the price. So, so I can buy this used car, or I can go buy a house and make some money on it. It just seemed to make more sense. And also, my real estate agent had a car. I didn't even own a car, and she could take me around places to go see it. I didn't have to take a bus, so it was easier. And that's how I started. I started getting student rentals in Waterloo. I was working at Research in Motion, rest in peace, back in the day. And I started building a student rental portfolio there. Fast forward a whole bunch of years, I had about 20 doors, and I was miserable. Like, I was working a full-time job still, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'd be in Waterloo. I'd leave my job, as soon as it was done, I'd drive an hour and a half to get to Waterloo, I'd start fixing things, and putting back doors that students had kicked off, and I was, every day I was doing this, and at the same time I was trying to find a life, have a life outside of this, and it was just extremely difficult. Thank God I had, girlfriends at the time who were willing to come up to Waterloo with me and help me out, but it was just very tough. And about 9 years ago, I had this realization that I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna get out of this because this is not the dream. I didn't buy this for all these profits for a second job. But before I quit, I said, okay, I'm gonna try to network the crap out of myself, meet somebody who's doing this and doing it right, because clearly there are people who are doing this and they figured it out. I just haven't. Around the time was actually I met Matt, and we started talking. He had investment properties outside the city, and it was like, hey, we've got these properties in Toronto. They are better returning, less headache, better tenant profiles, and we also have these other properties outside the city where we were dealing with landlord tenant boards, fixing toilets every weekend. Like, there was always something going on. And it's strange, we just happened to converge on a similar point in our lives where we were both going, WTF with some of our investments outside the city. And that's basically how Volition started. Matt was kind of the tail end of flirting with Alberta courting with Alberta investment, and we both ended up focusing here in the city. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
Let's give it an applause.
Oh, now I get it. Pity applause, guys. Okay, let's dive into it. So we have some questions already up there because we wouldn't know if people were super shy or didn't want to ask stuff. We can either start with what we have up there, if you see anything that looks really interesting to you, or we can open it up to the floor now and see. Oh, yes, there's also interesting slides. Try everything else.
That's what everything was gonna ask, so.
Okay, yeah, let's talk a bit about rates. Because obviously rates are a big thing, and probably on everybody's mind, rates, inflation. If it's not on your mind, it's very strange. It should be on your mind. Let's talk about what's happened in the last little bit. So, if you guys have been following us, we do a lot of work with Vine Group. If you're not familiar with the Vine Group, they're a mortgage brokerage which funds billions of dollars in mortgages every year. They really know their stuff. One of the things that they do is they send out these letters, newsletters, and this one was from about, what, a week or so ago, week and a half ago? This newsletter? A week and a half ago? Monday? Okay, sorry. I thought it was older than that. And they showed what the forecasting is for each of the banks. This is public information, they just have packaged it up nicely for us. So, this is, now, note this was Monday, so before yesterday's inflationary numbers came out. They were basically, most banks were calling for things to stay steady with an eventual decline happening kind of mid-2024. With the exception of CIBC, right? And, you know, if you look at this, you know, mathematically, you'd say a quarter of them, fifth of them are calling for a stay. But I'd weight CIBC a little heavier. Benjamin Tall, who's their chief economist there, he's quite good. And he's made a bunch of calls which have been contrarian, and he has been correct on them. So either way, it's either going to be a steady or a slight increase. The big part that's missing is the signaling from the Bank of Canada, because that's the problem that happened just in July, right? It doesn't really matter if it's a 0.25%. What matters is what they say along with that, right? So if it stays flat or a quarter, and the messaging from the bank is like, you know what, guys? We feel like we have a handle on inflation. I guarantee you the market will open up. It will unfreeze, people will start to buy again, people will start to sell again. If the messaging on September 6th, right, is different and comes with uncertainty, hey, we're gonna stay the same, but you know what? Hold your boots for another 2 months because we could change again. The market will stay frozen, right? Or it won't loosen up as much as a fall market typically will. So the messaging of uncertainty has really been what's key. I think for us as real estate investors, or just people who are looking to buy a home, we're going to start to see opportunities over the next, I'd say probably starting now, into call it Q1 of next year. And the reason is, if there is enough interest rate relief, people won't need to get rid of their homes. But if the interest rate relief doesn't come soon or fast enough, people will be in a position where they need to sell, right? Rates have gone up quite a bit. People have been dipping into savings to cover that difference, but they can only go so far. And when we were talking with our wealth advisor at CIBC, they had an interesting data point where through their surveys, they believe only about 1/3 of Canadians have been affected so far by the interest rate increases. And they believe that the first wave of people who will be further impacted will happen through the beginning of next year.
So the reason it's funny. So if you look at CIBC is the only one who is predicting this increase as of a few days ago. Okay? And funny enough, at Volition, our private wealth manager is at CIBC. So when we're talking to him, we're getting the more pessimistic view of things, right? But that data point's really interesting because if only 1/3 of the people are being impacted on the housing front by increased interest rates, he's expecting, or as per Benjamin Tal, they're expecting a lot of the people who had fixed rate mortgages to come up for renewal around this time. Right? So up until this point, it's largely been variable rate mortgages that variable rate mortgage holders who have been affected. I think we're mostly variable rate holders ourselves. We're affected too, just in the same way as you guys. Fixed rates are starting to come up for renewal. And when those fixed rates come up for renewal, and all of a sudden, the interest, so the rate that they locked back in, 3-5 years ago at, sub 2% or around 2% or what have you. Remember, I think HSBC had 0.99. I think insane, right? Insane, free money. So when these fixed rate mortgages come up for renewal, their payments are going to jump substantially, 50% more, maybe, depending on the situation. And so these people are may start feeling the crunch, and that potentially creates the opportunity. So as a seller, you have to be strategic about this. You look at the environment, you decide who you are. Are you a buyer, or are you a seller? Are you the investor, or are you the person trying to take advantage of the investor who's in a negative cash flow situation, right? So there's opportunity as a buyer, and if you're a seller, you need to play your cards right. You need to be looking, hey, what do I need to get ahead of? Do I get ahead of this avalanche of properties that may come onto the market because people can't afford them anymore? And this is not just investment properties either. Normal homeowners are also affected, obviously, right? So we're talking about investments here, but 50% of our business is normal homeowners as well. So we do have a lot of homeowners who are like, you know what, I can't afford this mortgage anymore. I'm looking to downsize. I'm looking to sell. So we have a lot of those types of clients as well. Right? So what else?
So one of the things to keep an eye on as well is OSFI regulations and policy getting in front of potential homelessness, right? It would be a very tragic story if people are losing their personal residences because of interest rate increases, and I can tell you, extremely politically unpopular, right? So OSFI's already talked about getting in front of this with policy in some way. They've talked a bit about what they might be doing in terms of having to re-advertise or create an environment where somebody who's a homeowner doesn't have to absorb the full increase of interest rate hikes. Nothing's set yet, but I would be surprised if something doesn't come in to some effect. So while I still think you're going to have some people who will need to offload personal residences, there will still be some, if you're on the buy side, a buy opportunity there. I think it's actually those who are holding poor investment properties that are really going to be in a position where they have to sell, right? So I'm talking about somebody who has a duplex, which wasn't cash flowing before, super not cash flowing now. Somebody who got into pre-construction thinking that was going to be a great idea, hoping to assign. Assignments are highly risky, and that's part of what you're seeing now, right? So I think it's those kind of properties that are really you're really going to see people having to offload them.
All right, so why don't we get started? And actually, let's open it up. This is a big topic. Teacher's pet already has her hand up. Here, Teresa. Oh, that was fast. Closer.
Do you think that this is going to open up the market for potential vendors to take back mortgages? And is this going to be a good environment for the stock?
So it has already opened up the market. Oh, so the question was, do you think that this is going to open up for VTBs, vendor take back mortgages? That's basically the seller offering financing on a property. Answer to that is yes. We're actually starting to see more of that already.
Do you want to explain what a VTB is?
Yeah, so if you own a house, you've got some equity in it, you can be the mortgager, you can be the mortgager to mortgagee, the bloody person who lends the money. You can be the bank. You can be the bank. If you have enough equity in your home, you can lend that back to the person who's purchasing, right? They don't have to get a mortgage. They can borrow money from you, right? That's what a VTB is. VTBs were very common, I'd say through 60s, through the 80s, when interest rates were high, circa now. Actually, interest rates aren't even that bad now, right? We're not even double-digit interest rates. But, maybe our parents or if you're older, you may have experienced that. And VTBs or seller lending was a lot more common there. So yes, we are seeing more of it now. it almost is like, and right now, we're seeing it as like incentives to move slow product, right? So Florence sent me a listing just recently, which had some VTB verbiage on there to try to get somebody to buy it. Because if you're a seller and you're in a market like this, you're trying to solve the problems of the buyer. And you can offer, a loan on this. You don't need that money right away, but you want to get rid of that property. You could offer a competitive first position mortgage, right? So, yeah, we are seeing more of it, and I think we will continue seeing more of it depending on what happens with the rates. Right?
Wow, we're already jumping into like master's and PhD level shit. Question number one. Not even like a slow lob for us to like. Let me ask you a question. Who even knows what a VTB is? Raise your hand. Who has no clue what the hell we're talking about? There's only two options. Do you want us to take 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 5 minutes to talk about what a VTB is? Would that be valuable to you? Yes? Okay. Because this is like, master's and PhD level shit we're talking. This is like ninja level shit. See, like, dressed as like a samurai already. Samurai investor, that's why I said. Okay, a VTB. So if I'm a seller, and let's say I bought a property 10 years ago. Maybe I bought it for, I don't know, just use a round number, $1 million. And, 10 years later, it's worth $2 million, right? And then I'm looking to sell this property. I can sell the property. If I sell the property, and let's just say I bought it for $1 million and it had $800,000 mortgage on it, right? And now I sell it 10 years later, the mortgage is maybe $700. Let's just choose a number. The mortgage is $700. The property value is $2 million. I have $1.3 million of equity in the property, right? Right? When I go to sell, I can sell, and the new buyer can come in, and let's say that they want to have a 20% down payment. What's a 20% down payment on $2 million? $400,000. Thank you. So that means the mortgage would be how much? 1.6. Does that mortgage all have to come from the same place? Does that mortgage have to all come from the same place? No. The same lender? The answer is no. So this is where you can have multiple streams of financing on a property. This is what we call first position or second position, right? Typically, most people are going to go to a bank, get a $1.6 million mortgage, right? Most people. That's pretty typical. Go to a credit union, go to a RBC, whatever, right? But you don't have to. Or, let's say you don't qualify. Let's say that I make a pretty damn good income. Household income, I don't know, 200 grand, let's say. $200,000 income, household income, not that, right? $200,000 income these days with a 5 times multiplier, if I multiply my income by 5, that's approximately my mortgage qualification. Isn't that insane? $200,000 income earner gets a mortgage, only qualifies for a mortgage of about $1 million. Very, very basic. There could be other factors to influence this, but $1 million. So you're like, holy shit, how the hell am I supposed to buy the $2 million property? I don't have $1 million to put down as a down payment. For example, this is where the seller could come in. The seller has how much equity in the property?
1.6.
How much equity in the property? 1.3. She's the only one paying attention. The rest of you are all asleep. $1.3 million. If I only qualify for $1 million mortgage from the bank, I could, hypothetically speaking, maybe get the rest from the seller. How much could I get from the seller? How much could I get from the seller? How much of a mortgage could I get from the seller?
600.
Whatever you can negotiate. Could be 600 grand if the seller would only go up to 80% loan to value. Hell, if you're a good negotiator and had a good business case, maybe you could go up to 90%. Maybe you could go up to 1.8 total finance. Maybe you could ask the seller for an $800,000 vendor take back mortgage. point is, it's a tool. It's another tool in your tool belt. So tonight, after I guess this was not 30 seconds, right? Never is. In this 5-minute spiel, let's just say, you now know what a better take-back mortgage is. You now have another tool in your tool belt to help you be a more effective ninja level, samurai level investor like Jurassic, right? Yes?
What's that term look like for that homeowner? You know, typical mortgage with the bank is going to be 25 or 30 years. Let's just say you're giving a 600,000 BTV, you know, back to that buyer. Is that also on a 25-year term? Obviously a couple points extra. And are you a first mortgage all the time?
The question was, what are the terms of a VTB look like? Is it 25-year amortization, meaning I'm paying some principal down? Is it first position? Is it second position? What's the interest rate? How long's the term? The answer is whatever you can negotiate. It could be first position, it could be second position. Typically, second position interest rates are a little bit higher because of the risk factor. Because if the lenders had to foreclose on the property, first position gets paid out first, second position gets paid out after. So every time that you're further you are down the food chain, the quote unquote riskier it is. You manage that risk as a lender by not lending too high on the LTV. You don't go to, typically you won't go to 90%, 95%, or 100% because there's a risk factor. But if you did, the interest rate would jack up as a result to compensate for the risk. Now, the other questions, is it 25-year amortization? Is it 30-year amortization? Whatever you can negotiate. What's typical? Interest only. Interest only is typical, right? Why? Think about it. I'm not looking, as a lender, I don't care about the little bit of principal you're paying down, right? In fact, as a buyer, one thing you can negotiate that's super, super, super valuable to you is a balloon payment at the end. Not paying monthly interest on that VTB mortgage. If you can negotiate with that seller, you can tell the seller, hey, what are you going to do with the couple $1,000 on it? That isn't not going to change your life. I'll tell you what, why don't I just give you a lump sum at the end, and maybe I'll throw you an extra 0.25% on 0.5% of the interest rate, something like that. Right? That could be way more advantageous for you, because what that does is it frees you up as an investor on cash flow. And other people, other lenders are like, no, I do depend on this, I want it. Okay? It's a negotiation. That's why I keep on saying it comes down to whatever you can negotiate. Does it have to be interest only? No, it doesn't have to be interest only. Does it have to be amortized? No, it doesn't have to be. It depends on what you can negotiate. Interest rates. First position, when interest rates were, normal bank rates were like 2 to 3%, you probably see first position VTBs in like the 6, 7, 8 range. Right now, first is probably a bit higher than that. Seconds, we're typically in the 10 to 12% range. If you're a lender, not bad, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if that's ticked up a little bit higher as well as a result of today's interest rates. So, how is that as a primer for VTBs? Do you understand what a VTB is? Yes. Could you go ahead and negotiate one now? That's where we come in. Don't worry about it. If you are doing a deal that involves a VTB, by the way, normal homeowners won't know what the hell you're talking about. Probably a lot of you own a principal residence. If someone came up to you and was like, hey, can I get a VTB? That's not the way you approach it. What you can do is you can have a conversation though with the seller. Hey, when you sell this property, what are your plans for the proceeds? Maybe they go, oh, I don't know, stick it in a GIC, I don't know, stick it under my mattress, whatever. Sometimes they have plans for it. Go buy another property, whatever, or put their kids through school, whatever, right? But sometimes they have no plans for it. In which case you go, hey, you know what? This is how you negotiate. You're like, oh, by the way, like, wouldn't it be, these banks, man, they make a killing, don't they? Man, they make interest, with all the interest they make off of the mortgages, man, they really make a lot of money, don't they? And they go, yeah, they do make a lot of money. Hey, what if we could come to some sort of arrangement where you act as a bank and you make interest just like the bank? Like that bank is making money hand over fist, aren't they? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be great if I could be something like the bank. Hey, why don't we talk about this a little bit further? If you if you don't have any plans for your equity after you sell this property, maybe we could put that to good use for you. Maybe you can make interest just like that. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Well, that's pretty interesting. That's how you negotiate the VTB. Not, hey, I'm gonna buy this property. I want a VTB in second position at 7% interest rate and interest only payments, balloon payment at the end. Cool? No, that's not how you negotiate a VTB. Right? So, anyway, that was a little bit of a detour. Thank you, Teresa.
Just one thing to mention is, under the current market conditions, VTBs are being used more as a tool to sell, right? To try to get ahead of high A lenders, B lenders, whatever it is. So it's used differently right now.
So on the one second, I'll get to you, Molly. So on the flip side, you're selling, and you got a buyer come to the door, and he's like, I don't know if I can qualify for this financing. I don't know if I can get a mortgage that out. Hey, what if I could help you out in terms of the mortgage qualification? What if how much do you qualify for? I qualify for $1 million. Oh, how much do you have a down payment? Oh, I got like 400. Oh, hey, well, I mean, I don't have any plans for the proceeds of the sale. What if I helped you out, Mr. Buyer, and help you acquire this property so you can buy it? And I could leave some equity in the property, act as a lender, just in the same way as who's your other mortgage? TD? Yeah. Just like TD. I could act just like TD and help you out. This will all be documented. It'll all be down on paper, done through the lawyers, all above board, completely legit. How does that sound, Mr. Buyer? Right. So it's a tool on both sides. If you know how the tool works, you can employ it in whatever situation benefits you most. Molly.
Wait, to your point, if it's used as a selling tool, are the interest rates favorable? Like as good as the A lenders?
Yeah, so the question was, if it's being used as a tool, are the interest rates favorable? I'd say that they are similar, right? If somebody's trying to incentivize you to buy this, they have to be providing better financing, better terms, right? So like, for example, we have a multifamily, which a larger one, 8 units, potentially coming on the market. The incentive for that is a transferable VTB in like the 2% range, right? Becomes a hell of a lot more interesting, right? To have that kind of financing.
I've offered VTBs while selling in a tougher environment. I've offered 0% VTB. I was like, well, I mean, do I really, like, if it helps me sell, do I really need 2% or 3% or whatever? It makes like this much difference. You can add it to your P&L. Yes, there's a little more profitability. If that's not your main goal, though, this is where it comes down to your goals, right? Is it more important for you to sell quickly, or is it more important for you to try to squeeze blood from stone, get every single last dollar from this deal, right? And in an environment where you need to sell quickly, because maybe you are a doom and gloomer and you're like, oh, I foresee this being an avalanche, this type of market, and a whole bunch of properties coming on, flooding the market, and whatever, right? Then you want to get ahead of it, you want a quick sale, or you need a quick sale for whatever reason, actually. You just don't need all your equity, right? 0% VTB, I've offered those.
Cool, let's open it back up. Questions?
Any easier questions?
Or if they're really hard, we can let that that's all. If not, we can kind of go into a bit of some of these questions behind us here. Do you want to go through what do I do with my negative cash flow property?
I don't know. What's up?
Does anybody here have a property that is now negative cash flowing because of interest rates? Okay, let's talk a bit about that because I'm sure it's happening to us. China? What would you do? What's one of because there's many things you could do. What are some of the easiest things you could first do?
Why don't we actually use this as a case study? Would you mind?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we use a case study, and then we're not talking hypotheticals. You want to come a bit closer?
Sure.
Rory.
Rory, yeah.
Yay! Thanks, Rory.
What about here?
You guys can send to
So looking for
You want to give it I'll give you a quick rundown. Yeah, so high level is purchased a property in the west end of Toronto in a transitioning neighborhood. And we got it at a good deal at a good deal at the time. Never a huge deal, but 5 to 10% maybe discount on market value. And following the path of mortgage brokers at that time and investors, took a variable mortgage. And in hindsight, of course, if I saw interest rates again below 3%, I'd probably lock in for the sake of stability, being able to run a P&L on that for years. Anyways, it's a single family home that we plan to, it's those wartime single family homes that we plan to renovate and maybe put a second story on and basement apartment. But it was cash flowing at the time with plans to improve it, and now it's not. And really our plan is just to hold out for a bit longer. We can do that, luckily. And the strategy around that in the next couple of years is to improve the property and then somehow get those existing tenants out and then turn it into that. That's one strategy. But really we're kind of stuck where we are. And if we had 2 of them going or 3 of them going, it would be a big problem. So just being real cautious of that is our next one.
Thank you for sharing. So, no, stay there. so, let me ask you a question. Well, actually, my question is, what's your question?
Yeah.
And the second question is, what's your goal? What's your intended outcome from this work?
Yeah, so the intended outcome when we bought it was to improve the property. It's again a single family property, there's room to build a second story, there's a home a couple doors down that's turned into, looks like a nice huge legal triplex. Probably one in the basement, I can see the separate meters on the side. Obviously the cost of building now is now something else to consider. So what do we do next? Like what is we want a line of credit. We did buy something else, a pre-construction last fall, knowing that I wouldn't do it again. It's just something came up in terms of quick access, discounts by the builder, and the location across from the High Park area. So it was just something we moved on quickly, and that's fine. Can't do that again, because I can build up quickly. But what would be the best move on that property, knowing that there's X amount of dollars in that line of credit, but definitely not enough to build a triplex on it. But what should we do in the next 3 years potentially to turn that around?
I have a question for him. How long have you had this tenants in for?
We've had the tenants in for just over a year. So we started renting out during that.
So you're starting negative cash flowing like this year, or you were ready?
Just in the last 6 months. We bought it from the owner, and they continued. They said they were going to rent it out going forward at this great rate, and there was a nice gap there.
Right.
So we said we need to jump on that, and then within 2 to 3 months, they're like, sayonara, we're out of here. And that was fine. Let them out of release. We weren't going to hold them into that, fight them over that. And then I think what was it, 2021, or it was very, a dead time. It was like January, February, nobody coming through. If I thought about it again, I would have waited another month or two, got the right, increase the rents a bit. So now we're working off a lower basement and increasing every year. But there's a gap there of, let's say, $600-700 per month in property taxes that you're in that negative point. But we need to make a plan to.
So let me just kind of reiterate Jessica's questions. How long the tenant was in there? Roy's answer was, we bought it, there was a lease back by the owner. The lease back from the owner who said, yeah, we'll continue renting here. After 2 months, they're sayonara, and you're left holding the bag. And when you were re-renting it out, it was at the height of COVID, at a discount to market rent rate, and now you're stuck with that person.
And great tenants and great people, but.
And your cash flow negative by how much?
Including property taxes, I'd say about
$600
$600.
bucks. So what's rent?
At this place, it's just $3,000.
$3,000 on rents. How much is the value of the property?
Value of the property now, I haven't really looked at it. I mean, we purchased it at $775, maybe you can go $859.
$775, now $859. How much in mortgage?
We put 20% down.
20% down. And then what are all your favorite costs?
carrying cost, property taxes, 2,500, I want to say. That makes sense. I'd have to go back 2,600, somewhere around there.
2,600 for property tax.
Yeah.
$200 a month.
Yeah. And insurance.
Insurance, another $200.
Yeah. And it was renovated before we bought it, but we've since had to replace the furnace, which I knew was going to come. So that's
Single family home.
single family.
So hydro, gas, and water is on the tenant.
Yes.
Yeah. So and then your mortgage of you said 20% mortgage on a purchase of $775.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the mortgage is around
It's
600.
around 30. It's around 3,500 now.
Okay, so the mortgage balance is about 600. So it's six
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Around
600.
Yeah.
And right now, if you took today's interest rates,
Yep.
and for every $100,000, here's a quick rule of thumb: for every $100,000 on a mortgage payment, it's about $600.
Yeah.
So the $600,000 mortgage times 6 is about $3,600. So
Yep.
your mortgage is how much?
Yeah, around
About that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Plus, okay, so it sounds like you got $3,000 in rent and you get $4,000 in carriage interest. Something like that. Yeah. So here's a
just to establish the full picture, is the pre-con that you're talking about. When is that close?
Recon. Hopefully 5 years from now. No.
Okay. So
No.
quite a while out.
No. It's not a massive development. It's a one building. It's mid 2025. Hoping delay, 2026.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your payment structure for that, how far into that are you?
We are. What's the total? I think we're 10 or 50% in. Like we're done the payments now.
Okay. So the payment's pretty much done.
Yeah.
I just want to understand the whole portfolio.
Yeah. And on that, we have a very long-term view on that. That we're not trying to sign it. I have kind of a 5-year plan in my head. But I'm not going to turn it from potentially, condo fees. There's a lot of things that come in the movie. Purchase in 5 years. The goal is to be cash neutral.
great. So couple of quick things. So hey Cecily, fashionably late. So I mean, thank you for sharing.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
I mean, if you don't feel like you want to sit up there, you don't have to.
If you need me, I'll stay. If you have
Well, thank you for sharing. So we got okay. Well, here, thanks, Rory. So this
pass around a hat.
so look, this
600.
$600 in right to cover the cash flow. So thank you for sharing. So right out of the gate, I will say actually single-family homes are almost impossible to cash flow positive. And actually, the fact that you came close even a couple of years ago was actually pretty amazing because that doesn't, and that's probably a consequence of being able to get that discount to market or 10-15%, bring down mortgage, which brings down your mortgage balance, brings down your overall mortgage payments. Single families in Toronto almost never cash flow which is why part of the strategy is densification, generally speaking. And so you talked about that. You talked about basement suite. Unfortunately, you weren't able to implement that strategy, so you're kind of stuck. Unfortunately, you're kind of stuck. Short of a N12, which is a owner-occupied use, not condoning it, just telling you what is out there. N12 saying that I want to move in, my family member wants to move in, my mom, my brother, whatever, right? That's number one. Number two, and then 13, like I want to demo the home and I want to do big renovations on it. These are type of renovation type of approaches. I'm not condoning it. I don't condone it. I'm just telling you what other people are doing. Okay. Cash for keys being another strategy. Right? So you can see basically what we're getting at is a single family home is not viable. And in fact, $600,000 mortgage against a $900,000 valuation, that means that he's at a roughly a 66% loan to value. If that were 80% loan to value at today's market value, 80% mortgage, which would be 720, you're basically, the way that we like to evaluate investment properties is here's our litmus test. If I'm holding an investment property, condo, single family, townhouse, whatever, if I were to refinance that up to 80% loan to value at today's valuation, do I cash flow? That is the number one question I ask people when I'm doing a portfolio analysis for them. Because if the answer is no, it doesn't cash flow, I'm not saying immediately sell. I'm saying you at least need to reconsider whether this property makes sense in your portfolio. So in this case, we've already bought it for $725. It's now worth $900. Great. It's built a bunch of equity for you. This is the same for a lot of people who bought condos over the past 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever. They bought a condo for $400. It's worth like $700 now, right? They bought it and then they had a mortgage of like maybe $350 or $360 on it or something, whatever, $320 on it, and then that mortgage has been paid down to like $200 or $250 over time against the valuation of like $700, $750. So clients come to me and they're like, sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent as well. They come to me and go, oh, hey, look at my portfolio, this condo, it's great, right? They'll look, it's cash flow neutral, maybe it's slightly cash flow positive. I'm like, I understand why you think this is a great investment property, but here's the reality. I can come in and look at it objectively. The reality is, yes, it's been great for you in the past. It has built you a shit ton of equity. Great. It's helped you build $350,000 of wealth. Great. But if I were to refinance that property at 80% loan to value today, would it be cash flow neutral? And they're like, if the answer is no, and the answer is almost always no, then you really need to rethink whether or not that property makes sense for your portfolio. Because it's an opportunity cost. I'm essentially subsidizing the underperformance of that property with my own equity. I will repeat this because this is extremely important. I'm subsidizing the underperformance of said property with my own equity. So, because, yeah, oh great, it's cash flow neutral, cash flow positive by $200 or $500. That's because your mortgage is like $200, $200,000, $250,000. You have an asset of $750,000. You're using $500,000 of your own equity to subsidize the underperformance of that property. That property is an underperforming property. The fact of the matter is you're using your own property to subsidize that to the tune of leaving $500,000 in. What could you be doing instead with $500,000? You could be buying a triplex, a fourplex, much higher rents, densification, owning land instead of that condo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I could be building a laneway suite outside one of my properties. Like, there's so much more that I could be doing. Think about the opportunity cost. This is where a lot of investors get stuck. They get stuck because they're like, oh, my property's great, right? The reality is, yes, it has been great for you. It has been great for you. But what got you here is not necessarily what's going to take you forward. What got you here, what helped you build all that equity, is not necessarily what's going to take you forward. That's what we need to keep in mind. Right? So coming back to this, for example, at the end, like really, and people have different aspirations. I'm making the assumption that you're looking to like maximize cash flow or whatever. Some people's aspirations are different. I just met up with a client of ours. He has a very, very, very good client of ours, and he's bought 10 multifamilies through us. And he was all doing really, really well for a very long time, and then interest rates hit, went from 2% to about 6%. Even his properties are cash flow negative. He's like, I'm massively cash flow negative right now across my entire portfolio, but I'm okay. He was a senior executive before he retired. He's like, I can just ride it out. Most people, unfortunately, can't ride it out. He can. He's like, I'm all good. I can ride it out. Most people can't. Okay? And so, you really need to figure out whether or not this property makes sense over your long term. For him, he had really good triplexes and fourplexes and what have you. So he's like, I'm going to ride this out. It makes good sense. Yes. For other people who have a bunch of condos, single families, townhouses, where really it's cash flow negative, there's no way out of cash flow negative, tenants in place or something to that effect, even if I was stuck in a secondary suite, it's still cash flow negative. Right? Even if I dump a whole bunch more money into it, it's still going to be cash flow neutral or cash flow negative. The question is, are there better assets out there? It's an opportunity cost conversation. Then, okay, Nick really wants.
I just want to make sure that we're able to get other questions in as well. I'll just along the lines of Matt saying, maybe a slightly different strategy to consider. In my mind, the path to success for this property is densification. You need to get to it, because otherwise you'll always be cash flow negative. Currently, it's even subsidized for that. So how do I get there? I can I don't know what the situation is with the condo, but without knowing the math, I'd be considering if I could assign it, can I release some funds to do cash for keys and renovation? Could I refinance the property to get some money to do cash for keys and renovation? Like, what can I do with my portfolio right now to do that? Does the math work to do cash for keys and renovation? Because if that does, that would be one path to take to get to densification. If it doesn't, then you would have to just be okay with being cash flow negative until you're able to hit that point, if you wanted to keep this property.
Yeah. So anyway, I won't belabor this, but under different circumstances, when I do advise, I've done thousands of these advisory sessions. So, everyone comes with a slightly different situation. If this were, for example, a property in which you've owned for a longer period of time, perhaps there's an opportunity, maybe that mortgage has been amortized, maybe originally it was 25 years or 30 years, but now you're down to 15 years. For example, you could re-amortize that mortgage back into 30 years, drop those payments significantly, improve cash flow significantly. Maybe you, for whatever reason, someone told you it's a great idea to pay your mortgage bi-weekly. Maybe you switch that to monthly instead of it ends up being almost an extra mortgage payment over the course of a year, right? 56 payments or something like that over the course of a year because of the way that it all works. Anyway, my math is all wrong, but you get the point. You can look at, when you really look at boosting cash flow, you can look at it 3 ways. It's very, very basic. This is what it comes down to. It sounds really stupid, but it really comes down to 3 things. Increase revenue. So how do you increase those rents? If it's the right property, maybe I could put commercial type properties or multifamily. It's like a sign up top. Get additional revenue. Maybe I buy internet once and sell it 3 or 4 times, like a triplex or fourplex. Maybe I rent out the garage separately. Maybe I rent out the shed separately. Maybe I do this. Maybe I do that. Think about increasing revenue, not rocket science. Number 2, decrease expenses. If I happen to be, a good way to do this is through capital improvements. Sometimes there's capital improvements, get rid of baseboard heating, put in something more efficient, right? Like caulk the window, like whatever, those types of things. Reduce those expenses, whatever those expenses might be, right? And if your property taxes are too high, get a reassessment. There's all these different things you can do, right? If I got insurance and I got really, really premium insurance, maybe instead of going with Hub, I decide to go with TD. Right? Things like that. Number 3, change up your financing. So what do? I could dump more money into the mortgage, bring down the mortgage balance, decrease mortgage payments, increase cash flow. I could re-amortize my mortgage. I could try to change up my rates. I could, if it makes sense, I could try to stick more onto a HELOC and less on the mortgage, actually. Pay down, this is a complicated technique, but under the right circumstances it can make financial sense. Get more on the HELOC, less on the mortgage, because on the HELOC it's interest only, on the mortgage it's P&I. Okay? Those are really the 3 things. 1, 2, 3. Think about increasing cash flow, it's going to be one of those 3 things. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's open up. Any other questions, or we can keep going through some of these up here? Jay.
What do you got, Jay?
Okay. I mean, the question is like, should I buy the turnkey or reno? But leading up to that, we were curious, do you still own that fourplex?
You still own that first fourplex that you said?
Yeah,
you still
fourplex.
own it? Okay,
And
cool.
so, I guess, leading questions to the bigger question, which is, I guess we were operating under the assumption that it was really difficult to buy straight up triplexes and fourplexes. And now people are like getting properties that build garden suites and add stories and what have you. So I guess that is the question, which is, do you outright look for a fourplex, and do all your prospective clients that are trying to get into the fourplex game, is that what you're kind of looking for in the market, or is it about, okay, we have the lot size, we know what we can kind of map out to?
Just add something to the same question, is like something that we can add on, because now the city of Toronto just changed all the rule about zoning and how you can kind of like switch the property. Before it's like, trying to make a duplex into a triplex, we have to lock because you don't meet this requirement. And right now it seems like, okay, well, you have a land, go for it, build for it, right? So are you guys, like, what do you suggest in that case?
So,
But can I add something before you? I look after construction advisory at Volition. So part of your decision whether to do construction or buy turnkey depends on your tolerance for pain and suffering.
And funds.
and that's
And funds,
right?
That comes with the
and
territory.
that's just the pain and suffering from flow.
Okay.
No, I think it is an excellent point. People way underestimate the
Did everyone
time.
get the question?
Yeah.
Did everyone get the question?
I asked them.
Do you want us to repeat the question? Repeat the question. Basically, should you buy turkey or
Yeah, basically, it's turnkey or should I rent it? Should I rent it? It depends, right? And I think it depends on personal situation. Let me talk about kind of the pros and cons. So let's define turnkey, because it's different for everybody. I think truly turnkey, as in brand new renovated, and you're just buying and renting, nothing to do, if that's the definition of turnkey, the stock of that is little to none. We see maybe 2 to 3 true, not a single thing to do, turnkey properties a year. They're also expensive.
Yeah,
Right.
we saw one on the market.
Yes.
It just came out 4 days ago.
Yeah, so if you are on our mailing list, we've actually sent out a couple of these. The financial performance of them has actually been pretty good,
Yeah.
but they're expensive.
Give an
right?
example.
Shaw was, I think even we talked about Shaw. But
There was one, it's on First Avenue. I don't know if you guys know the area. It's like on the east end anyway.
on First?
It's 2.6.
Yeah, we didn't want to say
Two-
that.
2.6.
We know the Volition first.
So it's
I saw the
2.6
one on Shaw.
million.
Yeah.
So they renovated, they bought it in 2021 for 1.6. It took it this long to renovate it. The property looks stunning. So they have main floor, 2 floor, then they have the basement. Then they also built a garden suite that is on top. So yes, this 1.5 garage, which will for a person that like pay the upper rent. And then they also built other units on top of the garage, which is a studio, but that's easy rent to short-term rental and stuff, but it's 2.6.
So basically, what for those who can hear, these kind of properties are bought heavily renovated. Typically, they're not purpose-built from the. Sorry, they're not originally fourplexes. They're usually single families, sometimes single family semis. We talk about top-ups, extensions, garden suites. They do exist in the city, and I'm sure you've seen them before. Taking those to market is rare. Most people who are going through all this trouble are keeping that property for themselves, right? They're refinancing on the higher rents, and they're keeping the property for themselves. There's a small portion of people who do this to exit, and usually exiting because they want to put that money into something else. So this year, 3, maybe 4 properties of this nature. Most of them are trading above the 5 cap, so capitalization rate. I won't dive into it. Most are trading kind of like low 5s right now, which is historically for Toronto very high, right? And it's because they're able to get excellent rents on these properties. We blasted one out, Shaw, Rock, Shaw. Sounds
There's
Shaw.
something else on Block that's good too. Yeah.
One of the units, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, kind of your standard second, third triplex, if you're familiar with them, was renting out for over $5,000 for just that one unit. we have not seen rents like that for a while. The city rents have really gone up at double-digit rates over the last couple of years. So, first question: should you buy that? Yes, if you can afford it, right? I think they're fantastic, but they're all in the $2+ million range. They don't exist sub 2 right now because those properties they're frankly worth that much money. Pretty much anywhere in the city, if you're getting 15,000 to 20,000 in rents, you're going to be up in that stratosphere, right? The second thing is, should you renovate? It's going to come down to your cost structure for renovation, right? If you are hiring out all the work, I'll tell you right now, it's probably not going to work. The math is probably not going to work. The cost of renovation has skyrocketed in the last 2 years. 30 to 50% increases. I see a lot of nodding heads because I know a lot of people in this room are in that industry. You're looking at 30 to 50% increase in renovation costs and 30 to 50% increase in renovation timelines. Now, timelines are getting a little better as supply chains have improved, as labor has kind of filled in a bit, but costs haven't come down, right? Things are still very expensive. And there's still supply shortages on random stuff, like one day you'll be able to get air conditioners and the next you can't find any. So my preference right now for, is a bit of a middle ground. We're kind of answering like what are the investment opportunities in Toronto nowadays. There's actually quite a number, but one of the ones that we're seeing a lot of are places that are financially underperforming. So it's a fourplex where they've got all under market rents. Nobody's interested in buying that right now. But what we have done with our clients is be creative buyers. So we've worked out where we're negotiating on behalf of the seller cash for keys. So it's beyond the comprehension of a lot of sellers. They don't even know what to do. They have no desire to do it. We're coming up with a conditional offer. We'll buy this conditional upon us doing a buy-out of your own tenants and able to secure property. So it's crap ton of work and a lot more difficult, but it exists as an opportunity, and nobody wants to buy these places, right? And people come in with the cash for keys, a couple of months rent. No, like if you're thinking cash for keys, you're thinking 1 to 2 years worth of rent. Nobody's going to move for a couple $1,000. It has to be in the 5 digits for it to be interesting, right? Like tens of thousands of dollars. Then somebody might, because that might not be an opportunity to present itself again, right? And you have to think they have to make up that rental difference for where they move. So that's one of the areas right now for looking at multifamily, which is an opportunity.
So I'll circle back to your time. 7:53. We'll see how long they're going to start playing music and walk off the stage. So let's circle back to your question directly. So I hate this answer, but it depends. Ming alluded to it. Why does it depend? It depends on whether or not you have experience in renovations. Do you add value to the process? If you're going to just, he alluded to this, but I'll address it directly. If you are just going to pay retail rack rates for everything, meaning you pay for product management, you pay GC, you pay retail rates for all materials, there's no margin. You might as well just buy something that's finished, right? Because the person who did that and is selling it probably had some sweat equity in there. Maybe they were a contractor, maybe they could source materials better than anyone else, maybe they could buy cheaper materials and lay them out in such a way that looks really high-end because they're an interior designer. Maybe yada yada yada, right? But if you don't know anything and you expect to come in and be able to buy, do a reno, and then all of a sudden have a shit ton of built-in equity, that's not how it works, right? It heavily depends on you. What value do you add to this equation? And if you don't add any value, then I would argue don't go through the pains of renovation. Because at the end, we tell a lot of clients right now, don't do renos. If you are experienced and you fall into one of those categories that I just talked about, go ahead, go do it. Yeah, you can add value. The variance is massive. We know someone who could do a reno on a place. We saw the finished product. We walked in and we were like, this is easily a $600,000 plus $1,000 reno. He told us how much it costs. It cost him $400. $400. That's 50, not 50. Whatever the math is. Somewhere.
Give or take.
33% less than. But and he used Chinese contractors, paid cash, no HST, all that good stuff. So factor all that in, it was a 50% less cost reno. But that's because he added value to the entire process. If you're just gonna sit back and let it be done, not a chance. You're not gonna, and people who think, oh, I'll come in and flip, not a chance. You're not gonna see any margins. So the answer is it depends. But let's talk about what some of these numbers actually look like. So this is a property, for example, that is probably in the 2.25 range, making $11,000 plus in rent. And at today's interest rates, at 8% loan to value upon acquisition, is around cash flow neutral. And which is, cash flow neutral upon acquisition is amazing these days, by the way. Right? Now, if you were to buy that same property, do that reno, let's say you buy it for 1.4. Let's say you did that rental costs you $600 plus HST, plus carry costs, plus everything else, the land transfer and everything, right? You're up in the, what's your total cost? Probably 2.2. So why go through the rental? Why do it? Right? So it's already something that's done that already is producing $11,000 in rent. You're probably not going to be able to do better than that if you did the reno and you have no experience. But then there's a middle ground. There's properties, like Ming was saying, how many of those properties exist where they're absolutely turnkey, walking, do nothing? Very, very few. We already know that. 4. There's 4? There's only 4?
4 we've seen this year.
4 this year.
5.
Maybe 5 this year. But there's a middle ground. And a lot of clients are acquiring this middle ground, where it's you acquire, where you add a little bit of value. Maybe like one of our clients is going to add mini splits because there's not enough, it doesn't have forced air HVAC. Right? So he's going to come in, add forced air, mini splits for AC, because there's no AC there. Right? Things like that. Like, so you come in and do some rentals. Maybe you redo the kitchen, maybe you do flooring. Very simple stuff. But it's already separated into multiple units. In this case, it was legal. There's a legal 4 units already, and he came in. He's going to do lipstick and rouge across various units. That is a realistic opportunity. Many of our clients are coming in and doing that, not doing big $600,000 renos, probably setting aside $50,000 to $75,000.
You think condo?
Sorry.
Just condo?
Well, condo, there's a whole bunch of those, right?
I think one of the this particular property, I think Matt's talking about, we probably got it about 150K under market because we went through the trouble of negotiating with the tenants directly, getting a place that needs work, right? And then doing those buyouts ourselves. So the opportunities exist because they couldn't get an offer from anybody else. We were the only ones.
So imagine this property is worth about 1.7 on the market, right? If it should be worth 1.7 based on what we see. But renter's been there for 10 years. Market value for that unit, we estimated about 2,000, they're paying 1,000. Market value for the other unit was 2,500, they're paying, what was it, 13. No investors could touch it with a 10-foot pole. And then 1 unit was vacant, so we could set market rate there. But it's market rents. Sorry, the rents it was producing is going to be about $2,000 below market. At today's interest rates, even if it was at market, it's very challenging. Forget it if it's way under market. No one can come in and solve this problem. But you have to think creatively for these opportunities. They're not just going to fall in your lap. This is why I kind of scoff or laugh or chuckle to myself when there's a lot of people who go up at House Sigma, right? Who loves House Sigma here? We love House Sigma, we use it. But the open house, you go, oh, there's nothing out there. oh, there's no triplexes that work out there. Yeah, if you take market rent, $1,000 and $1,200 or whatever, and you take whatever rents they were giving you, but we knew better than that. We knew that area. We're like, there's absolutely no way in hell that those rents should be what they are. We went and looked at it. They couldn't offer it, came and went, couldn't sell. We let them stew a little bit, right? And then we went in and we went and solved those problems for them, right? That's the opportunity. You have to be more sophisticated than everyone else. You can't expect these things to fall in your lap, especially in a competitive market like Toronto or a more expensive market like Toronto where cash was already very tight. Have we beat this one to death?
Yeah.
And we've only got through 2 questions.
I mean, you guys, I have three
questions.
Up to you guys. I asked for what they feel like.
Yeah, so I think at this point we could take a network. It's not. It's just being
Well, let's ask. So you guys want another? Do you want to ask another question? We've been taking questions off there. Do you have a question for us? Malik?
The one that's there, the COA change.
All right, let's talk about that quickly. Just a pretty quick one. Flo.
This is what I get for putting it up on the slide. This was pretty easy. It's a bit of a footnote for people that don't go to committee of adjustments very often. Basically, if you get past COA now, the appeal, your neighbors can no longer appeal your application after the committee approves. That's all. Before, you would have to go to, what was it, LPAD, whatever it's called now. TLAB, thank you, TLAB. Yeah, so now your neighbors can't do that anymore.
Do you want to explain
No.
why you go to? That's just no. She doesn't want to explain. Go ahead. Explain what COA is, why you go to COA, what you have to
So, yeah, so
context.
I'll explain quickly. COA, Committee of Adjustments. You go to the Committee of Adjustments when you have what's called a minor variance on a property. What's a minor variance? A minor variance is a variance to the bylaws. So, the bylaw says, thou shalt not build a home taller than 10 meters. And you're like, but I want to build it 5 centimeters taller, 10 centimeters taller. COA, please let me. That's all it is. You go there, you're represented with hopefully somebody who knows what they're doing, urban planner, architect. You make a case based on what's common in the neighborhood, that you should be allowed this variance. And the COA, and then Mighty Wisdom will either grant it to you or deny your request.
Well, there's a little more to it. So COA says, we agree this is a minor variance. You're asking for something that's extremely reasonable. You've demonstrated that within 100 meters or 500 meters, there's lots of other precedents set in your neighborhood. This seems reasonable. Motion granted. Whatever, minor variance granted. Awesome. Problem. 20 days after is an appeal period during which anyone can submit an appeal. Why do I know this is so well?
Because your neighbor did it.
Some people who have been around this meetup for a while will know this story. Essentially, I wasn't trying to do anything crazy. I was building a single-family home, custom-built home for myself. Actually, in this neighborhood. I live in this neighborhood. And our neighbor just said, you know what? I don't like the cut of your jib. I'm going to appeal.
Because they're 95.
So they appealed, and then what happens is because they appealed during that 20-day period, we have to wait another 8 months for something called TLAB. What's TLAB? Toronto Local Appeal Body. It is basically Toronto's version of the OMB. What's the OMB? Ontario Municipal Board. You used to be sent to the Ontario Municipal Board when you wanted to build a goddamn condo. A big goddamn condo tower. Not a single family home, right? So, but the problem is the process is the same. You get appealed at COA, you go to Toronto's version of the OMB. Thankfully, they created something that streamlines things a little bit faster called TLAB. Still had to wait 8 months to go to TLAB. Had to spend $25,000 on lawyers to fight with the neighbors in order to present the case so that the TLAB hearing members would grant in our favor. Then they would allow the COA appeal, the COA minor variance to stand, and then have your minor variance granted, right? This doesn't happen to everyone. It happened to me. It doesn't happen to everyone. But the problem is it could happen to anyone. Because literally anyone can come in and make that appeal. The change here now, what's the COA change? So Flo said it in one line, but if the significance has been lost on you, it's that your neighbors are not, third-party appeals are no longer allowed at COA. So meaning that COA, the at least somewhat reasonable minds at COA can be the ones to grant this or deny it, based on the merits of it, not because the person, they don't like the way you look or something like that, right?
Is that person still your neighbor?
Sorry?
Is that person still your neighbor, or he moved?
It's 95.
I wake up every morning hoping that person's not my neighbor.
I still there.
Actually, it was funny enough, Sina, Ming's wife, was at our place today, and an ambulance came by on our street, and I was like, please be stopping at ambulances. Anyway, this is, so I want you to understand what the significance of this is. This is massive for us, because if we're building legal luxury triplexes or fourplexes, we have to go to COA. In like 98% of the cases, we're going to COA because we're asking for a minor variance for parking, or a minor variance for this, or minor variance for that. Very, very, very small things, right? Because we want to build a legal luxury triplex or a legal luxury fourplex. We still have to go to COA. There's been lots of changes in the city that have allowed us to build up to 4 units, very streamlined. That might be another question someone might have out here, but we can build up to 4 units very, very easily now, right? But you still have to go to COA. When you go to COA, you're waiting 4, 5, 6 months for a COA hearing, and then anyone can appeal you and throw your whole business case into the ringer. Now, they're no longer allowed to appeal, meaning that risk factor has gone down significantly. This is great for development, especially small-time developers like us, building triplexes and fourplexes. The city is making changes for the better, actually, finally. Making it easier, because if you look at their plan is we want densification. There's a housing crisis. There's a housing shortage, right? We hear this all the time. Doug Ford's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna open up the greenbelt, whatever, like build more housing. The city's making good changes though by letting small-time developers like you and I, like you and me, to actually start building these things and not worry about being appealed at COA by your dumbass neighbor. Right? Good? Does everyone understand the significance of what that change is?
Yes. Amazing.
Just actually to add a bit to your question or statement earlier about the allowance of fourplexes. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is that, yes, it's an excellent move that the city is now allowing 4 units in any residentially zoned area. Great. Don't mistake it for it is now easy to do a 4-unit property, right? Because we still have all the variances, all the bylaws to still, fall under, right? I still may need height, density, size, parking, setback, like all these variances can still come up. And I still have to build a house to Ontario Building Code, which is 80% of the battle. If you've ever done one of these renovations before, the building is the hardest part. The zoning, as long as you were in the right zone before, it actually wasn't too bad. You should be buying with us, because we know how to make sure that you're buying an area where you can do that. But assuming you did that and you're allowed to build a multifamily, once you get your pre-zoning review, now you're gonna build a house, and that's actually the really hard part. So while it's a great step, and I'm really happy the city's going this way, it's made things like 7% easier, right? Like in the grand scheme of things. So for those who are here, any questions they want answered about real estate, life?
This is a therapy session
Yes.
too.
At the back?
Yeah, you guys mentioned seeing artists. You haven't really seen any artists.
Oh. So the question is around I hear a lot about garden suites, but I don't see any garden suites. What's the deal? So garden suites are still relatively new. If you think back to laneway suites, laneway suite allowances were ratified when we saw you guys at Living. That's how long ago it was. 2017 and 2018. So it's only now that you're actually seeing completed laneway suites and stuff like that. It takes a while to go from ratification of the bylaws to architects being able to figure out how to build under them, and then permits and construction to happen. There are apparently 3 right now that are being built in the city, but in 2024 there's supposed to be 50. So it'll be a big growth in the number of garden suites. 2, they're also more complicated. So laneways, in terms of their structure, are much more simple. So it's like X size, one angular plane to allow light into the backyard, and you're good. And because it's been around for a little bit, there's a lot of architects who are familiar and can have pre-designed places that fit in X space, right? Garden suites are more complicated because you're not abutting a lane, you're on somebody else's backyard. So when they were designing the rules, there were a lot of concerns about casting shadows into somebody's backyard. You didn't want this big building there, and then now your backyard, you're looking up at this giant building, right? So they're a lot more restrictive in terms of placement of the property and angular planes, that's like the angle of the roof, to allow light into the neighboring backyards. So it's not as simple as a laneway suite design. So the architectural and design process is a bit longer, as well as the site evaluation process, like figuring out where on your property is it going to sit to allow for light penetration into your neighbors' backyards. So they're coming. As an investor, I think that, if laneway suites are any indication, garden suites would be very good in terms of financial returns. So your cost of investment and construction on one versus how much you get back in rents. The part that I'll be very careful about now for laneways and in the future for garden suites is financing around them. So this is not necessarily financing to build, but refinancing after the fact. I think there's a misconception that if I'm building a $500,000 laneway suite on a $1.5 million house, my property's going to be worth $2 million. Right now, they're too new. Right? There's only 6 or 7 sold homes with laneway suites in all of the city. That's not enough data points for a bank to lend comfortably. And you're hearing the gamut of valuations on laneway suites. So some banks are like, hey, you have a $1.5 million house with a $500,000 laneway suite. Your house is worth $1.5 million. Right? They're giving 0 value to the laneway suite. Other lenders are looking at cost plus, right? So looking at your construction cost and then making adjustments. Some are actually lending on the value of a laneway suite. But it's early days, and just be careful, be cautious as you're doing your performance on being able to get that money back.
Was your question specifically around garden suites or garden/laneway suites?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of laneway suites popular, but I haven't seen any.
Okay, so it was specifically around garden suites. Yeah. The reason I asked is because if you were like, oh, garden suites, because some people they interchange the two. So I was like, oh, laneway suites. Was it last month? 2 months ago? We literally did a street smart tour of a laneway suite. Just like, it was like, I can right there. It's like literally like a 2-minute walk from here. So there are a lot of laneway suites, but garden suites very, very new. But also think, because you guys, you said that your investment properties are around the downtown core, right?
No, we're outside the city.
Oh, okay, outside the city, okay. Outside the city, garden suites, a lot more common. I don't know, did you get into this?
Not outside the city.
Why? If I'm going to make a statement like laneway suites are more popular in the downtown core, and garden suites are a little more popular elsewhere, why might that be the case? My wife says I talk at people, so I'm going to change it up and ask a question for once. She's like, you don't talk with people, you talk at people. So okay, why would garden suites be more popular kind of outside the downtown core? More yard space? Come on, Teresa. More land? Derek, yeah. More detached garages? Jay.
There's more laneways into
More laneways. Laneway suites, garden suite, right? In the downtown core, laneways are very, very common for parking, correct? In the downtown core. How many of you are familiar with normal downtown houses? You guys all from uptown or out of town? Some guy came in from London. Yeah. Downtown, laneways, right? That's where most people park their cars. So, as a result, you get more laneway suites. Not to say that their garden suites are impossible, but where do you normally find them? Maybe you find them when there's like a mutual drive between two houses, which is not as common as a laneway, right? So you're not going to see a lot of garden suites in the downtown core area. Where you start seeing it is when you start getting into more suburbia, where I have, a normal driveway in front of my house, let's just say, or, and I've got a lot more land in the back. So that's why garden suites are you're actually not going to see a lot of garden suites in the downtown core, right? Funny enough, my fourplex that I told you about a few hours ago now, that has a mutual drive and is eligible for a 14 or 1,600 square foot garden suite. So that's what eventually it allowed to do. But those are not common. Mutual drives are a lot less common than laneway suites. And if you don't have a mutual drive, you need enough freaking room between the houses to get to the back of the home. How many of those houses are there in the downtown core? Yes, they do exist, but not as common, right? You're not going to see a lot of downtown houses with garden suites. You will see them, but not a lot. Definitely more in the laneway suites. But once you start getting into like Midtown, or you start getting into like Uptown or into the downtown core, then you'll start seeing them. Garden suites have been popular outside Toronto, Barrie, and a bunch of other places. A lot of those places have built garden suites already as well. Cool?
Next question. Nobody?
No?
I want to talk a bit about the top one, because we're seeing a bunch of this happening. This is not, so let me take a step back. We've seen, and we've been approached by a number of people who have gotten into pre-construction, not through our advice, but who've gotten into pre-construction condominiums under the assumption that it would be a forever up market and they can assign these out. Not understanding the challenges to an assignment, they're quite difficult to do. Not understanding an assignment means assigning typically at a discount to market, but they're not able to close on these properties anymore. So we're seeing quite a number of clients coming up to us talking about these things, asking us to help with them. We're not the center of the universe, but I think it is indicative of what we'll see happening over the next couple of months. I do think that you're going to see a number of people who are looking to offload condos through assignment, through sale, and will be willing to do it at a discounted rate. I'd say over the next 2 to 6 months that this will be happening. I don't know how long it'll last after that. And the reason is, after the 6-month period, we may see a discount in interest rates. If the discounts start to happen, like the pundits at the banks say, some people may be able to hang on, right? I think people who are with pre-construction will be a little bit more exposed versus those who have successfully closed. But I would say this is an investment opportunity, but if you were looking for a condo to buy, or your family or friends are looking for condos, there does exist an opportunity right now. Like we just had a client come by who's looking to offload a pre-construction. They're willing to do it at a $100,000 discount because they can't close. They won't be able to close, right? So they know this, so they're willing to give a big discount to market. Is it a good investment? Not really, because you're not, the numbers don't work out well. We'll still tell you to buy multifamily if you can, but if you're looking for a place to live or you know somebody that's looking, that's going to be an opportunity.
These opportunities are coming up a lot, actually. So we have a few already.
I don't know if they're coming a lot for everybody. For us, they happen.
For us, people come to us because we solve problems, right? So people come to us because they got sold a bill of goods that never got actually delivered. Oh, buy this pre-construction for $600,000 in a couple of years. You can sell it for $800,000, $200,000. Boom, right? That's what we got sold a few years ago. First of all, assignments are really freaking complicated. Actually, people don't realize that. Very, very complicated. Actually, the way you have to structure contracts very, very specifically in a way that makes sense for all parties involved. I'll give you an example. All right, so let's just say, under very normal circumstances, do you want me to go down the path of assignments? Talk about assignments a little bit?
Maybe just what makes them complicated.
What makes them complicated? Okay, so where should I start? Okay, so people come to us at the, I'd love to say 11th hour, because that would still give us time before the 12th hour. But people come to us at like the 12:30 hour or the 1 o'clock hour, and it's already too late. Why is it too late? They're already in their occupancy period, for example. So people are even looking at their contracts. You have to look at your contract because there's typically a very specific assignment period. That is, let's just say, 12 months prior to occupancy, 6 months prior to occupancy. It's typically a period. People are approaching us in their occupancy stage already, and I'm like, I can't work miracles for you. I can't walk on water. You're screwed, dude. Sorry. You're gonna have to close on this. Like, it doesn't matter. You're gonna have to find, A lending, B lending, credit union. You're gonna have to find cash somewhere. You have to go private. You're gonna have to close on this. Sorry, there's nothing you can do. If you're in a situation like this, come to us early. We can help solve problems for you. So the assignment period, number one. Number two, do you have the right to assign? Did you even get that into your APS? What's an APS? Agreement Purchase Sale. When you buy these pre-constructions, they're not standard area purchase agreements as if you're buying a resale home. The developer's lawyers came up with this purchase contract, which means that the developer's lawyers made it extremely advantageous to the developer, not to you. Which is why you're advised upon purchase, especially during that 10-day cooling off period, to go get it reviewed by your lawyer. Why? Maybe they didn't include a right to assign. Maybe they're saying, oh, upon occupancy, you have to use the developer to lease out your unit. You can't lease it out on your own. You can't contract it out to anyone else.
Or you only have a 2-week window to assign the property.
Or you only have a 2-week window to assign the property. Or the kicker, the real killer, is that they didn't cap your development charges. What are development charges? Does anyone know what development charges are? I know Daniel. Daniel, what's a development charge? What the city will charge developers for the creation of these units. Development charges, hydro hookup fees, and vacation levies. To the tune of, how much do these things cost sometimes? $50,000 to $60,000 sometimes. The city will charge you $50,000 to $60,000. On average, about a 2-bedroom unit, about $60,000. Why do we know this? We build multiplexes. Unfortunately, multiplexes, normal multifamily homes that we build into legal luxury triplexes or fourplexes, are also subject to the same goddamn DCs.
Not anymore.
I know. Getting there. So we used to pay the same DCs as a freaking developer building a 500-story development, 500-story 3 towers or something like that. Oh, Ming's. I guess he thinks it's a match show now, so he's off duty. So, $50,000 to $60,000. So, you go to your lawyer when you go to purchase one of the pre-constructions, or you should go to your lawyer, because they'll typically cap them. They'll go, okay, negotiate with the developer and say, okay, we'll cap them at $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, right? So then upon close, you're not liable for like a $50,000 bill you weren't expecting. But some people don't. They don't go to the lawyer because they're not advised to by their realtor, who basically is just trying to sell them a bill of goods, right? And then they get screwed at the end. Though these are very, very unassignable contracts, by the way, right? If they're not capped development charges, for example. Okay? A whole plethora of different things could be in that contract, making it very, very disadvantageous for you as the buyer.
Can you advertise this?
Can you advertise them? Oh, okay, well, I'm going to sign it. Or here, I'm going to hand it over to this realtor, or maybe hand it over to Volition to sign this thing. Oh, you throw it up on MLS? What do you mean you're not allowed to? What do you mean you're not allowed to put it up on MLS? What about Kijiji? Oh, what? I can't put it on Kijiji either? I can't put it up on any listing service? No one told me that. MLS, Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, whatever. When you're actually having to assign one of these, you have, whoever you give it to, let's say you give it to random realtor XYZ, right? A regular dumbass realtor can only market and sell this to people within their own circles. So, I mean, Volition, we have very big networks, very big mailing lists.
And less dumbass
realtors. But the point is that like if that realtor only knows like, you know, he's got a high school friend and maybe his university sweetheart and his mom and dad, that's his network, that's all, that's it, right? You have to have widespread networks to be able to get the exposure for these things, or else it's not going to sell. So we've got good networks, which is why we've been able to sell a few of these for our clients, helping them on some. So look for that though in your contract. To be honest, this sometimes is not something that a lawyer will even help you be able to change on your purchase agreement at the time of your purchase agreement. Why? Lots of reasons. Developer holds back units, keeps units for themselves. When they go to close and sell, they don't want competing units. They don't want those units setting market price and setting precedent for their own units that they eventually want to sell if they withheld 10% of the units, and stuff like that, right? So there's reasons, but you can't always work around them. It does make it very difficult to assign these things, right? Anything else? What else? What else are they difficult to assign? Oh, taxation. Let's talk about taxation for a second.
Talk about taxation and down payments.
Down payment. Oh, good. Two more things to talk about for assignments. There's lots more. We'll stick with just two. Right?
Clearly a fan.
Sorry?
You're clearly a fan. I can tell.
I'm clearly a fan. Under the right circumstances, like the thing is, as a buyer, I may not be a pure investor, but as a buyer, maybe I'm, I've worked a few years at my job, saved it for a down payment, want to buy a condo, but everyone's looking for that proverbial deal, right? Maybe this actually is a deal, maybe, under the right circumstances. Because what you're essentially doing is you're solving problems for the seller. You've got arguably a distressed seller who can't close, doesn't want to close, got too many mortgages, can't qualify for the mortgage because rates were 2%, now they're 6%. Maybe they went out and spent all their money in other projects, or the opportunity cost is just too great for them, and they, this is just a pain in the ass little condo for them, or lots of reasons, right? But it can be a good opportunity for the right person under the right circumstances. I'm not saying it's a great investment necessarily, because very few condos, I said this already, very few condos are going to cash flow at 80% of the value, for example. But can be the right opportunity for the right buyer. So let's talk about down payment first. So let's just say that there is profit. Let's say that you were one of the lucky ones. You bought it for $600,000, and now arguably it's worth $700,000, $800,000. Let's say $700,000. Okay, you bought it for $600,000. You put down 5% deposit, another 5% deposit, another 5% deposit. Maybe another 5% is due upon occupancy or something like that. Right? So maybe I put down 3 of the 4, 5% deposit, 15% so far. So on 600 grand, 5%, 30 grand, on 30 grand, 60 grand, 90 grand. I put 90 grand down so far in deposits. Now I want to assign. And then I bought it for 600, I want to assign for 700. Let's say there's $100,000 in profit. You have to do this in the right way. Who's your buyer? Is your buyer going, like, I want $100,000 of my profit. Let's say you come to an agreement on price, $700,000, but you haven't come together on terms quite yet. Why? Why is it so difficult to come together on terms? I want to be, if I'm the seller, and I'm not very sophisticated, I'm thinking in terms of, okay, I put down my $90,000 deposits, right? The last 5% is due upon occupancy. We're not at occupancy yet. But there's $100,000 of profit. You give me my profit, right? For the buyer, you're expecting the buyer to come up with $190,000 to take you out of your position completely. They're not going to have $190,000. They had $109,000. They'd be buying something else, right? And then they have to come up with another 5% upon occupancy. So you're expecting them to come up with like $220,000 essentially. $220,000. They had that. Maybe they go buy a house instead, right? A $1.2 million house or something, or a $1.1 million house instead. Not a $600,000 condo, $700,000 condo. So you have to structure these properly to be advantageous or at least palatable for the buyer. How do you do that? So one way you can do that is, okay, it's completely negotiable, but maybe it's like, it depends on the market. Ideally, maybe you take me out of my position. Maybe you take me out and you put in our assignment contract, it's a $90,000 deposit you pay to me to make me whole. And then pay me my profits later. When? Pay me my profits maybe upon close and registration. What does that mean? So we talked about occupancy a bunch. Does everyone know what occupancy actually is? Who doesn't know what occupancy is? All right, well, no one's answering, so I'm just going to explain it. So, I know, this is your punishment for not raising your hand. So, occupancy. The building is substantially completed, but it can be habitable, but it's not completely finished, and it hasn't closed and registered. The condo corp hasn't registered as a corporation, with the city quite yet. When does that happen? That normally happens, let's say, 4 or 6 months after occupancy starts. So what's occupancy then? Occupancy, you take possession of the unit and you pay what's called an occupancy or like a phantom mortgage or rent to the developer. The developer still owns the unit, you don't own it. So you pay rent to the developer essentially. And it's typically, it's like almost like normal carry costs, paying mortgage, condo fees, property tax. It's almost the same. Right? So during occupancy, you actually don't own it, you pay occupancy fees to the developer. But then, 4 months later, 6 months later, condo closes, registers and closes, now they transfer title to you. Now you own it. Now you have to pay the rest, you have to pay the down payment, you get a mortgage, now you own it. The key there is you get a mortgage. So the buyer coming in this example, would get a mortgage on the property value of $700,000. That's what they bought it for. Now, the developer can be paid out, and the assignor, the original buyer, now they can be paid out their profit as well. That's actually how you would structure a contract, so you're not killing the buyer, coming in, punishing them with the $220,000 of cash. You're not going to have that, right? So, depending on the situation, you might need to make it even more palatable for them. Maybe it's like, okay, you don't need to pay me all my deposits now. Pay me some of the deposit now, some later. You can structure it how depending on the circumstances, right? So you understand how down payments work. This is why assignments are not that straightforward. You have to know how to do them. Second one is taxation. Should I get into that?
A couple of minutes. I would say that depending on how it's structured and what your portfolio is like, what your history is like, you could get hit with a massive tax bill if your assignment is deemed as active business income because you'd be subject to HST, which would be 13% of the sale price. So 13% of 700,000. Right? That could wipe out all your profits and then some. And it's something I think people don't consider their tax planning when they're going through inside. One of the things that we do when we're sitting down with clients during advisory, understand that history with them, go through the scenarios so we can figure out what somebody's potential tax bill would be. We're not accountants at the end of the day, but we can help develop those scenarios. So you can figure out, hey, am I looking at 20,000 or am I looking at 120,000 in terms of taxes? Anything else to add before I wrap up?
Here's a potential scenario that might be advantageous there, right? So let's just say assignments, not let's say, they are, assignments are considered active business income. They're not considered cap gains, right? So everyone like, oh, $200,000 of profit. At cap gains, my tax bill is 25% of that, generally speaking. No, wrong. 100% of this is taxable at your marginal tax rate. Call your marginal tax rate 50%. Active business income, 100%, you're paying 50% of tax on that. But wait, there's more. Lee was talking about HST. Actually, there's HST to consider because this is new construction. There's income. There's tax on your deposits as well, not just the profit. There's a whole bunch of tax implications here. We're not accountants. We're familiar with some of this. We can also help you at least shed some light on what these scenarios look like, and then bring those to your tax team. One advantageous way to do this, though, is if there is profit that you want to shelter and tax shelter, is think about doing it within a corporation. If you do it within a corporation, active business income in a corporation is taxed at 12.2%, not at your marginal tax rate. Massively advantageous to you. So cap gains, 100%, 50% of the cap gains is taxed at 50% marginal tax rate, equating to about a 25% tax bill. Active business income, 100% is taxed, not 50%, 100% is taxed, but at 12.2%. But you're probably an HST registrant. You probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But the point is, you're going to be an HST registrant, another 13%, bringing you up to roughly a 25% tax bill, similar to cap gains. So you're not paying 50% tax, you're paying the 25% tax. There's ways to do this intelligently. If you don't even know what I'm talking about and you're in a situation like this, you need to talk to us because you will get taxed at a very, very high tax rate and wipe out a whole bunch of your profits. A simple conversation with us could get you the better outcomes, right? Which is what this is.
Yes. So, first, thanks everybody for your participation this evening. What we have been doing a little bit of here is kind of what we do in advisory. So oftentimes people sit down with them on a one-on-one basis. They ask questions about their situation, portfolio, what are they trying to achieve. We did it with that gentleman there whose name I forgot. Rory. That's kind of what an advisory session is. We go a little bit deeper because we actually have the numbers there, so we can do some of the math. But I highly encourage people to take advantage of this. We typically charge $500 a session. To do this, we offer the first one free. Get out like a drug dealer, get you hooked. But hopefully there's good value there. You actually find it interesting, and we can do business together. You can scan that QR code or speak with pretty much any one of us. Alicon's taking off right
actually
now.
got our calendars open, and so you can book you directly.
Yeah, but he has to leave right now.
Oh, you can leave?
So, but the QR code's right there. It takes you right to the website to book a session. We are meeting up again in a month from now. We will be talking about 2023, 2024 investing strategy.
Is this actually what we're talking about?
We'll see.
It's a placeholder for
Yeah. I think what would be really interesting is this time, and this is how crazy the market is right now. In 1 month from now, we will know, has the rates, what happened with the rates, and what's happened with inflation again, and that we could be in a very different market in just 30 days. So come out if you are able to. And lastly, we always like to end with this slide, which is our happy dog, our positive dog. we believe everybody can do it. We started ourselves knowing absolutely nothing about real estate investing. We're not special in any way, only short bus special. So, anyway, thank you everybody for coming out tonight, and we'll be here for a bit to take any questions individually.
Thank you.